that churches splinter over now. Like we're so far severed from the church speaking in unity, and I mean this and tradition, like the bigger tradition, because it's all come down to like this individual. I mean, the whole what is the West comes into the conversation in this whole thing too. So
just so you guys know, I just started streaming this to my channel too.
oh, geez. Just so you know too, I have to leave at 2:30, so you can can you carry it on? But anyway.
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
I liked Luke F. What? I've never seen you here before. Have you been on any of these live streams before?
No, I haven't made it. I've been kind of lurking for, I don't know, 2 years or so. I was able to connect with Ted S. from Arkansas.
Oh, good.
He's
live and in person. I'm in Arkansas as well. We're about like 2 hours from each other. So.
Okay. You know, Luke T, when you talk about the thing under the creed, I mean, this is the same dilemma that we have with like language. You're right in that the best, our best apprehension of these things are iconic rather than idolic. In that there's something when we're using language, when we're using the creed, we're pointing through them to something else. But especially as human beings trying to connect with each other, the language is what we have. And we have this through time too. And you know, this is, it's funny in our classis meetings when we do these examinations of candidates, Trinity will always come up. And one of the things,
and your classes stuff does?
Oh yeah. Well, and nobody's denying the Trinity because of confessionalism, because, well, you pretty much know if you deny the Trinity, you know, you're going to be on the outside.
Right.
But as you and Sam noted, okay, well, explain the Trinity. And so, you know, I dealt with this a little bit in my Colossians sermon, where if you look at, like, say, the Christ hymn that's in Colossians 1, if you try to put that hymn into your own words, you will probably wander into heresy. So the only way to not wander into heresy is to embrace the words that are there. And that's, you know, that's that whole saying about the creed, to keep the words of the creed. Because if you choose other words, and so even though you are pointing to things under the words or through the words, most of us are best just sticking to the words, because when we try to get beyond the words, everyone else around us begins to realize we're getting into trouble. I mean, one of the interesting things that happened in the 19th century was this big wave of biblicism in the burnt over district, where everyone's like, wow, we're gonna rediscover real Christianity. I'm gonna read the Bible for myself without any creeds or confessions, and if I appropriate the Bible to myself, then I will have it. And that's where, and we didn't have sort of one thing that emerged, as, let's say, Luther had hoped in the Reformation period. We had the LDS Church, we had the Jehovah's Witnesses, we had the Seventh-day Adventists. There were the Millerites. There was just this explosion of churches that varied tremendously, and so for this reason, the creeds sort of help keep us together by saying, you know, if you sort of stick with the creed, you'll probably be able to be in the depth of the pool that you can still touch. But if you try and go out beyond it, things are going to get squirrely, especially for a so-so swimmer.
So here, what that made me think of is this comment. So I'm throwing my own terms and I'm controlling the dialogue because it's my stream. So this is something I've thought a lot about, and I think it's true. So I was really into classical education for a while, and just education in general, I think demands that, like, this is part of why you can't just plagiarize things. And part of knowing if somebody really has understood something is that they can say the thing in their own words. That's part of actually proper education. If you can't say something, this is why I talk about personalist knowing being the only real kind of knowing, and definitional knowing isn't true knowing, because you're just repeating platitudes. You don't even know what that means. And yes, maybe are those the training wheels to get you there? Sure, that's fine. But eventually, you have to take off the training wheels. The law is a good pedagogue. It's not ultimate. It can't be.
Yes, and that's true. You know, the old saw about teaching is you do, I watch, you do, I help, I do, you help, I do, you watch. But that's limited in terms of things that you can sort of manage. When we encourage students to say things in their own words, the feedback loop with the professor is important.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
Yet, even if you're using, and the reason we do this episode is because this practice is because if you're just using the same words, I'm not sure of your level of understanding. But that also doesn't mean that even if from what I hear from you, I think you have it, doesn't mean that the it that you sort of have, that the words sort of lay on top of, is necessarily the same either. And what we're usually looking for is something that's perhaps good enough. So let's say we're carving, and you do, I watch, you do, I help, I do, you watch, I do, you help, I do, you watch. But the thing that I will carve will still not be the same as what the master carves, because there's a level of knowing and there's a level of doing that the master has that the student doesn't have. And even someday when the student becomes a master, the student will not be a copy of the master.
Not an identical replica.
No, it'll be a version of the master, and in some ways might exceed the master, and in some ways might fall short. But this is all sort of a function of combinatorial explosiveness, where most of what we're talking, because by virtue of talking and ideation, has to be a reduction. And it's the same issues in terms of, our relationship with God. All of us in some ways, when we try to apprehend God, we only apprehend a reduction. And so there's always an element of idolatry in there, which is why worship tries to avoid that by sort of taking ourselves out and focusing on in a way that isn't sort of an apprehension.
If I could
ahead,
throw something in here, and this is probably going to be the last thing I need to say before I have to get to work. But I think there is something about confession, in the best sense. I mean, I think of the Nicene Creed, the Apostles' Creed, and gosh, even learning the Psalms, learning the language of the Psalms as these deposits. Okay, then that do something to the heart. They do something to the spirit. They train someone in spiritual formation, train someone to say to the trellis or to the cross from which they can grow and flower. But I think Luke, I mean, your critique is a confessionalism that becomes a cage. I think at best, these confession statement of faith, it's like standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, to think about the theological work that went into the creeds, it is a blessing to have that language, to then use that as a springboard and for your faith to grow from that point. But I think what you're critiquing, Luke, and kind of modern, I mean, let's just say a lot of modern evangelical churches is, instead of it being a trellis that one grows on, it becomes a cage that confines. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
no, I
probably
no,
the last thing I can say.
no, I really like that, and that's beautiful. And I agree I would agree when it's a traditional ecumenical creed that maintains itself as an icon that allows for the further up and the further in, which is what a creed does. It used to be called the symbol. The Nicene Creed is called the symbol of the faith, heaven and earth. It is fundamentally an icon. And so I have no problem with those creeds. Those are great.
Well, this
those
has been
can't be.
a real joy. I'm so glad I was able to join. But like I said, I've got to bounce.
I'm
It's nice
happy you did.
Luke.
Great
Thanks
to see you guys. Of course.
Sam, so you were summoned.
Have we solved it yet?
Luke summoned you.
Okay. He manifested me, right? Isn't that what the cool kids say nowadays?
I didn't even cheat.
And for those of you watching, I don't know how I just get this button up that says stream this on your own channel. So I hit that. And so I know this is going out on my channel, but the link to join is on Luke's channel, and it might go away unless someone who else has, I think, powers at Grail Country can come in when Luke has to go. But
Jess does. Jess just said hi. Jess, you can come in and control it because he's on Grail Country. I like to look at all the comments to find out who's watching from my channel because they're the cool people.
No, we were talking about confessionalism and the and Sam's point about okay, so in what ways. And it's funny because Unitarians too. So there's a box, Unitarians. There's quite an interesting sample in that box of Unitarians. And Sam, part of what makes Sam interesting is that Sam is in very many ways fits very comfortably in the evangelical box, though he be a Unitarian. And there's a huge diversity of Unitarians with respect to, let's say, Christology. And, part of what makes Sam interesting is, to the degree that I understand Sam's Christology, it's at least a very high Christology. But the truth is, now that Sam has, colonized a certain portion of my consciousness Congress, there's Jess, when now I'm going through the book of Colossians, and I run into these verses, and I look at different readings of them and so on and so forth. But as I go through the book of Colossians, I just think, I'm glad I'm a Trinitarian. I think this just works better.
I might make a response video to that, although I feel weird making a response video to a sermon. But
I did. A lot of people didn't like what I did to that poor woman who just gave a talk at a sermon at a tech conference.
Fair enough. I guess anything on the internet's fair game. But I also need to respond to Father Stephen DeYoung, who is taking shots at me on the Lord of Spirits. So.
Oh, really? On his podcast?
Yeah, he's taking shots, saying he's super smart.
Coming at me. I'm going to have to fire back on. I'm getting hit on multiple fronts.
I'm not coming after you.
All right, that's fine. I mean, I'm not an anti-confessionalist either. I think it's sort of what you were saying, Paul. And I do think that part of what you can see was one of the mistakes of the Unitarian movement in the early 1800s in the United States was getting rid of all creeds and all propositional definitions of belonging. And that's part of what summoned the spirit of whatever is guiding Unitarian Universalism at the moment. And I'm not quite sure what spirit it is, but I don't think it's the Holy Spirit. And I do think, sort of the you kick out a spirit and 7 worse things come back in problem was part of what happened when early Unitarianism in the US was de-creedifying, de-propositionalizing itself. Because there was like a solid 50 or 100 years where relatively conservative Unitarianism was pretty common in the United States, especially in New England. But it just slowly, and there was signs of it from the beginning, of it going in the very liberal, and I think that really is the right word, direction. So I'm not completely against confessionalism either, but ugh.
You're not against confessions. You're against confessionalism.
I'm against confessionalism. I guess you're right.
Thank you.
I'm not against confessions. I'm not against all creeds. I'm happy to recite the Apostles' Creed, and not just because I agree with it, but because I think that's a perfectly fine and good thing to do together as a church. Yeah.
Jess, tell us the truth of Job and save us.
I'm a one-trick pony. Come here.
I haven't cried a while. I haven't cried in a while, Jess. If we can,
all right,
talk about Job and cry.
I can. I mean, just get me going, and that's where this horse leads. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. I just saw you guys, and I was like, I can't not join.
All right, so we started talking about Universalism, and we'd left talking about Universalism, and we started talking about confessionalism. Well, because the initial topic was, I think that it's, well, I'll just say it mean. I think it's dumb that people say you can't be explicit about your belief in universalism, but you can be explicit about your belief in eternal conscious torment. Like, it's fine to promulgate that, but like, you can't talk about like a universalism that takes sin and justice and reconciliation and repentance seriously, like a George MacDonald universalism. That's off the table. But like, we could talk about eternal conscious torment despite like all its problems with metaphysics and how it portrays God, essentially.
Right. Is Unitarianism universalist?
The most common form of it that people are aware of is, but actually the Unitarians and the Universalists didn't merge denominationally until like the 1960s. And there had been, non-Universalist Unitarian churches in the U.S. for over 100 years, over 150 years, 200 years at that point. So, but basically, I think an interesting tale is both the Unitarians and the Universalists had basically stopped being really kind of Christian, honestly, by the 1960s. And they're like, are you post-Christian in the same way we're post-Christian? Want to just join together? And so there, I do want to figure out whatever lesson that was. Jordan B. Cooper has been talking about Unitarianism in the U.S. and per usual, he's doing a pretty slanted and bad job of it. And of course, we'll need to respond to him too. Once I'm done firing back at Laura's spirits and at Paul's bad take on Colossians 1, then I'm going to have to hit Jordan B. Cooper, and maybe Gavin Ortland will finally pay attention to me. I don't know. We'll see.
Quick side pause break for PBK. One of my live stream ideas is why it's so hard to quit, or what keeps drawing the people that are in this little corner, and why we stay here. And I think a big part of it is you, because that is the thing. Like, this has all happened very organically, and it's all happened very personally. Your corner of the little corner of the internet is very person centric. And maybe it's just because it's my little corner, but I think it's the most person centric. And the people, like, I don't know, I don't follow Jordan B. Cooper or what, but like, if your main goal is to like build a platform around talking about ideas, you're boring. Like, I don't care about your project. Like, I care about this project. So,
Paul, did you watch the Church of the Eternal Logos? I think I'm getting that channel right. Video about you.
No.
So
I figured if he said something important, someone would tell me.
I don't think it was weird. So the Church of the Eternal Logos is very Jay Dyer, orthobro adjacent, men's, issues / orthobrodom kind of channel.
Manosphere.
Orthobrosphere, whatever. And like, honestly, there's some videos of his that I've listened to and kind of liked. It's not like he's terrible. He is a pretty smart, articulate, fast-talking dude. But AC, who is a guy who is in your comment section a decent amount, who got kicked off the Discord server, not by me, let the record show. I did not click the button. I will not reveal who clicked the button that actually booted him. The only person I booted off the Discord by actually pressing the button was Claire Shaw, and I'm proud of that one. But but other than that, so AC, it was, he was poking some fights and getting on people's bad side on the Discord server and got kicked off. And I think he's been kind of anti this little corner of the internet, thinks we're some part of some conspiracy to, what's it called? What do people who want the Orthodox Church to join the Catholic Church, what do they call them? Uniates or something like that? Anyway.
Uniates, yeah.
Basically evil ecumenicalists or something. But he paid the Church of the Eternal Logos channel to make a video about you, Vervaeke, and Peterson. And it was half complimentary, half critical. But honestly, I don't feel like he understood you very well, because most of his criticisms of, like, say, Vervaeke are things that you would often make too. And, but it was also like, and orthodoxy is the obviously only right answer to the meaning crisis. And so become more orthodox and that sort of thing. But, it was it wasn't a terrible video.
Good. No, Luke, your question to me is interesting, because it'll be interesting to see how, let's say, the Symbolic World Conference is different from Chino.
Yeah.
and I, each of us, and when we do a conference like Chino, you can sort of tell, there's a lot of overlap too, because many of us watch all of us, but there's sort of the Peugeot group and the Vervaeke group, and then the strange people like us. And then get the question. Well, this sort of gets into your confessional question, though, Luke, because, is there a confessionalism in the Vervaeke tribe? Is there a confessionalism in the Peugeot tribe? And is there a confessionalism in this corner of the corner? And I don't know, we're fairly anti-confessional in some ways. But so then what is holding us together?
Religio.
Okay.
Love.
Yeah. But can we not just explain it, but there's power in identity and in naming spirits, let's say.
Naming is important. That's an area where naming's a big deal. That's something I would love to actually talk with Yosef and Hezi about. Like, I was gonna talk to Hezi about it a while ago, because all the way back to the garden, naming is a big deal, and I don't know how to talk about it well. I mentioned it to Sam. When was that? The last live stream. I think self-naming, the Whitestone name. I think essentially that's my handle. I think that's the end, is when your creation is complete, when it is finished for you, naming won't be a problem.
But naming is important for us.
But we're on this side of receiving and understanding and knowing our Whitestone name, and so that's
we're still divided man stuff.
Yeah,
we're double-minded.
Remember Prince when he took this unpronounceable? It didn't work. We need names.
Although even the Tetragrammaton is something kind of like a Prince-style anti-name. There is something,
but that's God's name. Right. So, and
we are gods. No, too far.
Sam or Luke, if Sam isn't taking Jesus as God, I don't think any of the three of us are going to qualify.
Well, I'm fine calling Jesus God in the way Luke just called us God. For the record.
Follow the logic of the incarnation. Let's go down. Let's keep rocking. Further up, further in, further down.
Grizz said the thing that holds us together is the YouTube habit we had when Peterson appeared, which I think that's relatively true too. There is something about it that is the sort of people who have time and ability and whatever weakness it is to pay this enough attention to YouTube.
But it's quite remarkable. The four of us. I mean, Jess was on the channel very early. We had a number of conversations, and I remember, before I kind of laid down the law on the Patreon, on the Calendly app, Jess was like, "I want to get him in before this closes." I thought, "Oh, this is really going to close." Well, Jess was right; it did. But we're all still here, which is interesting.
Because that was 4 years
my
ago,
wife wouldn't
5
call
years
it
ago.
Interesting. My wife would call it annoying, dumb.
Turns out we're all mentally ill.
So. Maybe we'll see.
So I'm seeing a video of Jess on Paul's channel that is over 4 years old. It's about the Book of Job for some reason.
Yeah.
Really?
It's like he's been working on it for a while.
Oh my gosh.
And
I don't remember when it started.
But there's an intersection of all, and there are others who aren't with us anymore. Not that they're dead, some of them are, but Job's busy because he's having a baby. But
I've had 3.
Yeah, Job.
What's wrong with you,
Stop
Job?
paying so much attention to your children.
We're obviously ignoring ours.
I've outsourced them, as like Richard Rollins said. I think I've given them away. I've outsourced that responsibility to my local Catholic church.
It is for me, because obviously we are getting something from this, and Grizz talks about some of his stuff here, but Chad and Grizz and all of you guys, and then we had this conversation this morning about Europe, and I'm going to Europe again, and we're going to do the German thing, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I hope a lot of people who went last time come back, because I'd like to see them again and like to hear what's changed. And I guess part of it, I guess, Luke, to your question, part of it for me is that I do sort of operate as a pastor, even in a realm like this. And so even though I can't really sort of keep tabs on all of you, part of me does care. And we also have a greater capacity for outliers like, Mark Lefevre and Grizz and
navigating patterns.
Yeah, navigating patterns. And people who have sort of been alienated by other elements of the corner. And again, that part of that is me, because that's been my story long before any of this. So I don't know. I don't want to leave any sheep behind. And that's something that
how godlike of you, leaving the 99 for the one, Paul.
That's something that Tripp noted. He would get so frustrated with me when I would refuse to get dogmatic about something, because just kind of roll his eyes. Always the missionary. Always, he's the father looking out. That son's going to come down that road. I'm going to keep waiting. So
Tripp puts up with me. He's got to put up with you. That's fine.
I don't know. Well, why do you guys keep watching? I mean, my channel isn't that large. I mean, it's large is so hard to know when it comes to YouTube, but
I mean, if you walked into a room every day with 2,000 people in it, you would feel like that was pretty large.
Yeah, but that's a different thing.
Yes, but in a way, you are walking into a room with 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in it most days.
Yeah.
So for me, this is always, I don't know, it truly is always been a personal thing. I mean, I got the same Jordan Peterson thing, the pastor's response, because I've said this before. I care about the church. That's what I've always cared about. And so like when Jordan Peterson's interesting to me, but all of it's always only interesting because of how it relates to faith and church and Jesus and God. That's just always what's been a big deal for me. But then I got to know you. I got to know Jess. I got to know Sam. I mean, I've known some of these people and talked to them daily. I mean, Jess and Sam and I often are messaging daily, and we have been for years.
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
it's
like
really
we just
cool.
so we just know each other really well. And then every time that I, you know, try to quit the little corner or stop paying as much attention, like I'll watch one of your videos because like you're the first thing that I usually pay attention to, even though I take little Sabbaths from it. And then and then you'll say something and I want to comment, you know? And so then I'm re-engaged. And then I have people like at the Estuary meeting last time, because I was thinking I've said, this is what I put at my last Estuary meeting, I said, I'm increasingly becoming more concerned with just doing stuff here. Like how does all this play out in Minneapolis and being more involved in the estuary and what do I have to do here? And simultaneously, like you can't ever get rid of something. Sherry's always challenging me about like diminishing the online space. But the guy said locally too, and this just came up in the comments too. You get all these comments all the time. Like this isn't just for us. Like there are other people benefiting from it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
There's a type of conversation you can have here that I've never had anywhere else.
Right.
Like nowhere else. Like maybe 5 or 10 minutes here and there with someone, but it's never repeatable. But it's like you always, like if I ever need to talk about something or run some ideas past someone, I get on the Voxer and I just start talking, and there's Luke and there's Hezzy and there's Sam and Yosef and Sherry and Nate and, you know, like all these folks. And if I make a video, like people are commenting, even though my channel, like my channel is super tiny. I still get people that write me emails every now and then. I just got an email the other day about Job stuff, and it's like really interesting stuff that like no one, you know, this is where Sherry, like you said, Luke, like Sherry really gets on people for saying like, oh, online life isn't real life. She's like, why isn't it just part of real life? Like, why isn't it included in our friendships and stuff? Somehow it's like secondary.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. And then there's also something to like, you know, it's just about, I have other responsibilities in my life. I'm actually supposed to be working right now. So, but there's a refreshment that I get from like talking to you guys. And there's a refreshment that like, I don't feel like I expend energy. I feel like I get something back. And then like when I go do other things in my life, I feel like those other things get better too. So it's definitely not a bad thing. So
It's
the other thing
really
I was thinking
helped
of,
me be able to talk about stuff too. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
me too. And I feel like there's like, because it's more than just having like openness. Like people have a lot of trait openness, but it's more than that. I feel like there's a shared territory where we're all kind of like walking around, and then we're like, but we have to talk about it, and then we're identifying things in each other's speech and in each other's description of things. We're like, oh, that's this and this and this, and I recognize that, and it really is some kind of landscape that we're in. And I don't know if that makes sense, but there's been conversations where I'll come to a precipice, and the conversation just sort of halts, and you're both there like this, and it's the same feeling as standing at the edge of a cliff, and you're just like, here we are, and you're just looking out, and the conversation, like that's as far as the conversation could go, because literally, and then there's other times when you go to an opening and you're walking through the woods, and then all of a sudden there's an opening. And you can both, like, it has the same feeling as walking into an opening, like a clearing, like a meadow. And, you know, and people will have different reactions to that. People will be very hesitant. They'll be like, I don't want to go out there. I want to stay back here, safe back here. And like someone else will be going out and saying like, no, it's okay. Look at this. Yeah. So I've had intimations of that, like through conversation. I'll be like, I'm really like in a place right now more than I am just a linear conversation.
Okay, I gotta go. Sam, what do you get out of this little corner?
I don't know yet. I still haven't found what I'm looking for, you might say.
Oh man, I'm hurt.
Luke's like, am I not enough?
That's how Luke heard that comment. Yeah.
You know what? One of the things that's important here, we laugh. We laugh together.
Yeah, it's not all serious. Like it's real. It's all of it. It's real stuff. Like if this was just that's how my estuary and even here, like because I've figured out we need to define goals, boundaries a little bit. I'm realizing I need boundaries in general as a person because I'm not good at that. But if this were just like an intellectual thought group or something, boring, super boring. Like I don't care about it. Yeah, you got to laugh with each other. You got to mess around, you got to I mean that's part of like, I don't know, communion and table fellowship and church and the real entails all of that, you know. So all right. Well,
Well, I wonder what happens when you turn it off, if we all go away or if it stays on my channel and I get controls. I have no idea.
let's see. I'm going to leave the studio. 3, 2, 1.
We're still here. Are we still streaming?
We're still here. I'm looking at Paul's channel.
It might be because
no, it's still going on Paul's channel.
Well,
really?
I'm a Grail Country admin.
Oh,
so I have controls. I don't know what happens if I leave now.
It's still going on Grail Country too. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jess has controls. So,
all right.
Well, I don't know. I think it's love. And, part of the poverty of our culture is that one word is used for how many different things. And I wish we had more of the Greek understanding. And I think there is a lot of love in the corner. And love is a complex thing. Love is a really complex thing. I mean, anybody who's in a marriage should know the complexity of love. Anyone who is a parent or a child should know the complexity of love. But I think people come to be loved and then hopefully to stay to love. And I see a lot of love in the corner, when someone disappears, I get notes. Oh, so-and-so has disappeared. Where are they? And I'll go look for them. And, and yeah, so I don't know. And it is interesting in terms of Luke's mission that I don't know if we could write a confession for the corner. What would be in that confession? What's our form of unity?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen The Bear. I see it advertised a lot to me on streaming TV, but I haven't watched it. Maybe I will watch it. I don't know what it's about. So
I've only seen one episode. I know it's about a cook in Chicago making Italian beef sandwiches, but I'm not quite sure how that relates to this little corner. Although at the Chicago event, we had Italian beef sandwiches for lunch. If you guys remember, or if Paul remembers.
There it is. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. Yeah, we just, like I said, we just had a little get together for the German festival, which I'm looking forward to. And of course, Kansas City will be coming. And I don't know if Israel's ever going to happen. But one of the things that's happening is John Van Donk is recognizing that Estuary is growing beyond him, and we're going to have to do some more institutional development. So that'll be fun. Some people have been screaming at me for years because they wanted more institutional development. Well, it's going to happen. Then we'll see what they like about it or don't like about it. But
what does that mean? What does that look like for the Estuary groups that have more institutional development?
Well, right now, John Van Donk has been, running all the ELSNet meetings, and that's like 12 2-hour Zoom calls a month. It's 24 hours a month. And those groups are growing. And so you're probably going to need more of those ELSNet meetings online. And so you need more leaders. And so Now some of them are doing it. So then we're going to have leaders of ELSNet meetings. Other aspects of Estuary, there are other leaders who are sort of covering those. And so then we'll have a team of leaders. And once we have a team of leaders, there's some other little costs about Estuary, such as Zoom accounts and domain names. So it's not a lot of money, but there's, a source of money that it might be that, we say have an Estuary foundation. We won't call it Mother's Milk of, human unity or whatever Jacob would describe. But, probably something very Protestant like the Estuary Foundation, which, on one hand sort of holds the values and does a little bit of policing, this is what the Estuary Protocol is. And these are Estuary conferences where, that collaborates with the Estuary, all this kind of stuff that develops eventually, because right now all this stuff is just operating out of John Van Donk's hip pocket. And John is a 70-plus-year-old man who's feeling some of his age. And I've just been basically saying, John, as long as you want to run it, that's cool. But when you feel ready and you feel it's outgrowing you, then we'll start to develop more. So then we'll probably have a leadership team, and then we'll probably have a larger group of, let's say, estuary leaders from all the different estuaries who represent and connect with the leaders. And, there you have an organization. So
bishops and cardinals, and
I don't think I'm very Protestant. There won't be vestments.
I'm so Protestant. We haven't. The Chicago one hasn't even joined the ELSNet. It's like that's not like always an intentional choice. Part of it's because I'm lazy, and part of it's because we predate the ELSNet.
Yep.
But part of me is also always wary of something over me, I guess.
Well, there wouldn't be Estuary unless we had non-Estuary who's kind of doing the same thing. So it probably keeps the whole culture good. Because if Estuary gets corrupt, there's always the Chicago. What's your name?
I mean, we're kind of like the Jordan Peterson meetup, but we've kind of downgraded that as part of our identity, and yet somehow new people find us.
Yeah.
And we've got plenty of people. I don't know. Nate says if an anarchist can manage, so can you. I don't know.
Because Nate's pretty high up in the Estuary hierarchy. So, Nate might eventually be the new John Van Donk.
That'd be good. I'd be down with that.
A group led by an anarchist can't be too bad, I guess.
Oh. Well, have we? Do you market your group in Chicago?
Sam? On meetup.com.
What's it called?
Chicagoland Bridges of Meaning, I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes.
I can't wait. I'm really excited about seeing what will happen with every Sunday morning Estuary at Living Stones.
That is interesting.
Every Sunday.
What's the difference between that and Bible study?
1 or 2 Thursday nights a month, Who will come up? Will weekly meetings on a Sunday morning, how will that change what we do? And how will that change the people who participate? Grizz, I don't know if that game's ever going to come about. I mean, it's just, I could play one right now. My son is helping with the dog. So, but I won't have my son in the house once he gets a job and, moves to the Bay Area or LA, then hopefully the dog will be ready to go to school then. But, my poor children, they think their strange father.
Chicagoland Monthly Bridges of Meaning Meetup.
Boy,
that's for a catchy name.
Yeah, that's got to bring him in.
It? What do they search?
Find it? I don't know.
Oh.
Actually, a lot of our growth at this point is word of mouth, friend to friend. But there are some people who come just through meetup.com. There are some people who've just found us because we're on the library where we meet schedule, and they're like, "Huh, what's that?" And so they just come. That we've gotten at least 2 regular people who just found us because of we were inside a public library. And so I don't know. And at this point, we don't really need to grow. We had 15 people last time, which is, I think, almost too many. And so, like at 16 or 17 or 18, then you need to split or something like that.
Then suddenly you have to institutionalize. Then you need.
Then we have to institutionalize
rituals and habits and practices and rules. So one of the things, so Vedant and I want to make a video about, because he's noting the 3 streams into Estuary. There's the sort of this little corner channel, and then there's the meetup.com, people who come there, and then his church network. And so his Estuary is very much made of those 3 streams. And so obviously the church and the meetup people, they don't know the chatter in this little corner, but I'll be interested to see. It'd be interesting to me to see to what degree a weekly Sunday morning Estuary for some people becomes they're doing that. Well, they weren't going to church, but they're doing that in place of church, even though they wouldn't go to church without it.
Yeah, it's like how how Ambrose would give his sermon, and then after they did the Eucharist, he would come back out to the people who were listening and answer questions and give a talk to the people who were sitting in the narthex of his church, but who weren't part of the church. It's almost kind of like that again.
Well, Tim Keller, of course, did Q&A in the early days at Redeemer. He sort of asked me anything on Sunday morning. And yeah. Where are you at with church, Jess?
I'm a part of a Southern Baptist church plant that started 5 years ago. So I'm Protestant. I'm an evangelical Protestant in my bones. And
I'm Missouri Baptist.
Well, and I really love my church. It's right in my neighborhood. It's
nice.
literally called Neighborhood Church. And, and so I was one of the founding members. And then yeah, it's different than other churches I've been a part of because like most people that go here are literally in the neighborhood, and all our kids go to school together and all that. So it has like a community vibe about it that's real. Like it's not like, hey, let's try to be a community. Like we literally are a community, and then we go to church together too. So it's really nice.
That's
so
ideal.
far so good.
That is ideal. I have as many of those circles together.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, as you said, I mean, part of your attraction to the corner is that you can have conversations this way that you probably are never going to have locally.
No. Yeah, and it's interesting because when I was launching the KC Estuary, we have like 3 members right now because Lance left. Lance is down in Texas now. He moved for work. But when I launched it, I had a bunch of people come. Like we had like 15, 16, 17 people on the night that I was like, hey, this is kind of the idea. And I had 2 friends like chew me out over it. And this is kind of before, this is pre what the protocol. So
Estuary protocol.
Yeah, that wasn't established yet, and that was a huge help. So pre-protocol, I was kind of like trying to describe what we do, and no one knows what we do. So, and then I had 2 good friends kind of get mad at me at some level and sort of berate me in the parking lot for about an hour afterwards about how dumb this idea was. And I was just like I was like kind of stupefied about it, that they didn't understand, like, don't you guys understand it? And and one of the guys is like a overly skeptical former atheist kind of type, who's come back to Christianity. I guess he was raised Christian. And I was like, wouldn't you benefit from like a place to talk like this? He's I don't know. He had all kinds of problems. And then I've had friends that were just supportive of it come a couple times, and they're like, I don't get it. And then they leave, which is fine. So, but like the guys that do come, they've had some involvement with either the Discord or watching certain YouTube channels or something. And there's a certain spirit that we're trying to engage in, and they get it. And we're able to have like a, between the four of us, there's an atheist, sort of a questioning Orthodox leaning guy. There's me, a Protestant Southern Baptist evangelical, and then another kind of evangelical guy. But it's just like, so we can do it, but like my other, Southern Baptist friends can't. And so it's not something that people, I don't know. There's a spirit they have to be sort of initiated into at some point. And I think the protocol can help with that and just being in the group. But if they don't stick around long enough, or they don't really see the need for it, they're like, I got other stuff to do.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to just go to this meeting to be nice to Jess or whatever. So,
yeah. We had classes yesterday, and so I was asked to just give a little report on Estuary, a little introduction. I had two pastors come up afterwards, and they're like, this one guy said, we had a really great classes meeting yesterday. Some churches gave some really good reports, but a couple of pastors came up afterwards and said, this is exactly what I've been looking for, always wanted. And so, of course, I hooked them up with Vendonk and get them into ElseNet, and I can help them jumpstart their groups. One's in the Bay Area, one's down in the Valley in the Fresno area. We've had a Fresno group before, so I think that'll probably be able to go too. But for a couple of pastors, they're like, I've always wanted, I love doing this. And I just explained the protocol and how it works and how the groups work. And so I'm hoping that they'll start, because there was I can't remember his name. There was a famous Christian rocker, worship leader who deconstructed, and he basically said, I want a church without dogma, or I want a church without, basically I want a church without dogma. And so then some people tagged me, so you need to find Paul Vanderklay, and I thought, well, this will be interesting. But but I think that's part of, again, getting back to the confessionalism question in this little corner. I think in some ways that's part of what we're playing with. I mean, I don't not want Sam here, even if he's a Unitarian. I want Sam here. I want Grizz here. I mean, even it was so funny. The most fervent critic of Estuary in the comments has been MJ, who's a Unitarian. What if these people get together and they talk heresy? Says the Unitarian. So yeah, I don't know. I think this sounds very evangelical of me. I think God is doing something, and I think God is doing something with us. And I'm not sure exactly what he's doing with us, but again, to me, it seems to be bearing good fruit. And so as long as it seems to be bearing good fruit, I'm going to keep at it.
This is kind of Chad's drum. He's like, is Estuary a way to serve others?
Yes.
Guys. Yeah. I remember, Paul, you and I had a conversation a while ago. It was before the lockdown on Calendly, or maybe it was post lockdown on Calendly. I got one more in, but we were talking about Estuary, and you talked about serving people by providing a space for them to think. And that was really that was really powerful. That was very powerful.
Well, and part of so I was laying out the protocol for these guys yesterday, and the sneaky thing about the protocol is what it creates space for is for people to listen. And I've been amazed at how every time I do an Estuary meeting, and we break up, and so because we have more than enough for one group, so we break up into little groups. I have different rooms available at Living Stones. After each time I go, I just think, wow, what a conversation we just had. People shared stuff that was personal and important, and they trusted the group with it. And their trust was validated and vindicated.
I think I could be better at having my group be a little bit more personal sometimes. How do you do that, or how do you think you can be better at doing that?
Well, actually, what's developed is we have a lot more women in our group now. Our group is probably 40% women. And the women get personal quicker. And it's been amazing. You know, women take to this, I think, in some ways more naturally. I don't want the women to sort of, there be too many women so that the guys go away. But I've just been amazed how, and I think the protocol itself helps, that the way this is, the way that, and because when we just did the meetup, oh, what are we going to talk about? And then, you know, the same guys usually have their ideas and they're sort of in the same vein. But when you're a little bit more disciplined about going around the room and drawing out some of the quieter people, and most of the women haven't been on the Jordan Peterson train at all. They've come with their boyfriends. And but once they start it, and once they realize that this is a place where this is a place where men and women can have a conversation, that gets interesting too. So I don't know.
It's like that when Vervaeke talks about the reciprocal opening. Was it? I forget the term he uses, but it's like you tell something about yourself, and then they tell something about themselves, and then you tell something a little deeper, and then he's like, that's how you fall in love. It's the same sort of thing. And so some of it's kind of led by example. So like if it needs to get a little personal, like maybe you got to just maybe tell a personal story and see how it lands, and see if other people start jumping on board.
You know, Dolly says circling, and I've had a number of conversations with Guy, and I still don't really understand what their circling is. And, you know, there was Mencius Moldbug wrote that blog, which sort of, you know, went after it. So there's a lot of questions about circling. I just don't know anything about it. And I don't need any more tools than what I got right now. So I'm sticking with the Estuary thing. But again, I'm very interested what will happen when a group goes weekly with it. And
weekly with meeting or weekly with circling?
Weekly with meeting.
All right. Okay.
Estuary
I'm still a little worried about neo-pagan elements of the circling thing. I'm not accusing it of that, and I've never done it myself. But I'm like, yeah, I don't participate in rituals I don't know the origin of.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know they had rituals. I have no idea what.
Well, I mean, I think circling is kind of a ritual, right? It's like not just square dancing or something like that. It's something a little bit more, I don't know.
There's videos of them doing it online.
Oh, I'll have to watch
like
one.
This emotional work, and I don't know.
I'd be fine with square dancing though at Estuary. Totally fine.
You'll only do shapes with parallel sides.
No.
I did
angles.
I did a college class on square dancing. It was almost all women, which for a single college guy was
good. Yeah. I used to call square dances in college. I have the ability to call a square dance. Yeah.
Well, maybe at the next
maybe at the next Chicago Bridges meeting, except we're about 95% dudes and we only have girls when Laura shows up. But
maybe Laura, if you do square dancing, some women will come.
Estuary / square dancing.
Maybe it'll compete with paintball for the opening physical activity.
Yeah. / parkour.
Man, there was some statistic that I saw that, who knows, I saw a statistic on the internet, so take it with all the credibility that deserves, that like some shockingly high percentage of young men, like young as in like late teenage years, have never asked a girl on a date or never, you know, done anything along those lines. And I was listening to my to the sex ed teacher talk about what the sex education curriculum is at the school district. And she said something like, it was like in the section on teaching consent, that flirting is not for getting someone to like you. Flirting is for letting someone else know that you like them. And I'm like, if only the relationships in the world where someone didn't have to convince the other person to like them through a little bit of effort and a little bit of flirting and whatever, if those relationships didn't exist, how many relationships would there be? I mean, I had to convince my wife to like me, and it took more than one, you know, just whatever. And I think that I remember in middle school, we did classical dancing, like waltzing and stuff like that. And in those classes, the guys had to get up, cross the gym to the girls' side of the gym, and ask a girl to dance with you. And that was part of it. And I think like those sorts of things are so stigmatized now that I think there's a lot, like the attempt is to prevent women from being harassed in ways that they don't like. Great, I get that. But what better way to do that is there than teaching guys a polite, respectful, chivalrous way of propositioning a girl to dance with them or something like that at an age-appropriate time. So I don't know.
Dancing was an activity that ostensibly was something safe. But yet it was about,
unless you went to Wheaton College, and then you couldn't do dancing.
Well, Calvin too, but for a while, sort of. Calvin, of course, was Dutch, so more flexible than Wheaton. But yeah, no, I think you're right, Sam. And I mean, my strategy when I was single was always develop the kind of relationship before I'd have to extend myself to get shot down. So you already know what the answer is going to be before you have to ask it. But yeah, leave room for Jesus. Yeah. Leave room for the Holy Spirit. Oh, holy crim. Oh, well, gents, I should probably work. I've got another sermon out of Colossians that I don't know if, I mean, the first one obviously dealt with Christology. The second one, not so much. My sermon last week I thought went really well. It's been fun preaching out of Paul, no matter what Jacob says.
New creation. That's all I'm going to say. New creation. God made the new creation through Jesus. If anyone is in Christ Jesus, he is a new creation.
So he didn't make creation 1.0 through Jesus. Jesus didn't make it.
No.
2.0. Not the foundation of the world.
And 2.0 is better than the 1.0 anyway. 2.0 lasts forever. 1.0 comes to an end.
Oh, so, Sam.
Which one's more important?
Sam. Anyway, all right. Well, maybe this is a good place to land the plane. So good to see you, Jess. So good to see you, Sam, and you too, Luke. And the other Luke. Always fun to meet a new face. So,
all right, guys.
Take it easy, gentle people.
Thanks, Luke, for starting this. See you later.
Bye-bye.